right now on Our Indiana.
We'll fill you in on the big stories surrounding IU athletics this week.
And we look ahead at two main spring IU events.
Welcome to this week's episode of Our Indiana. I'm Nicole Christine.
And I'm Imani Keith. We start this week off with a couple of updates to the men's basketball roster. Earlier today, it was reported that OG Anunoby will declare for the NBA draft and hire an agent, meaning he will not return for the IU this final season. During his time at IU, Anunoby was known for his size and ability to pull off dunks as well as three-pointers. With a field goal rate of 62%, he is still seen by many as a first-round pick, despite suffering a season-ending injury this past January, which took him out of some lottery pick discussions. This news came just days after Al Durham announced he is staying with the Hoosiers after previously asking to be released from his contract.
Fans said goodbye to 3 seniors from the women's tennis team this weekend in IU's last pair of home matches. Paula Gutierrez, Kim Schmider, and Alicia Robinson were all honored this weekend as part of Senior Day, but there was still plenty of Big Ten competition to play through. On Saturday, the Hoosiers fell to the Fighting Illini 6-1 before coming up against the ranked Wildcats from Northwestern. In that Sunday match, IU also fell short of victory, getting shut out 7-0 by Northwestern. The men's soccer team, however, got a taste of off-season revenge on Saturday as it took down in-state rival Notre Dame at the Shindig's National Soccer Festival in Fort Wayne. The Fighting Irish shut out the Hoosiers last season 4-0, but it was IU who came out victorious this weekend. The match came down to a penalty shootout after regulation ended 0-0. IU netted 3 goals in the shootout, but the most impressive gameplay came from redshirt freshman Sean Caulfield, who kept Notre Dame from ever finding the back of the net.
The women's rowing team hosted Ohio State as well as Rutgers this weekend for a Big Ten double duel. The Hoosiers fell short to the Buckeyes 22-44, but bounced back by defeating the Scarlet Knights 44-22. The women will get some rest this week as they prepare to face Clemson in a couple of weeks. After a little bit of a slump, the baseball team came out on top in a battle against Ball State on Tuesday. The Hoosiers went 11 innings before Lloyd sent one to the right field for a walk-off to win the game. The Hoosiers then traveled to West Lafayette for the weekend for a 3-game series, going 1-2, closing out with a win.
While the first football game of the regular season is still over 4 months away, it's never too early to make predictions.
In this week's Cream vs. Crimson, WIUX play-by-play broadcaster Josh Eastern joins us to look ahead for the spring game.
It's already that time of year again. The weather is heating up, and so is Indiana football. The annual Cream and Crimson Spring Game is this Thursday, and with that, we welcome you to a new edition of our segment, Cream v. Crimson, with WIUX play-by-play announcer Josh Eastern and Joe DiBenedetto. Josh, a good friend of mine, welcome to the show. Thank you for being on.
Thank you.
I brought up that Indiana football is having its spring game. What's the point of this game? What are the advantages and what are the drawbacks? Josh, let's start with you, man.
I think just this is a game to kind of see where this team is at right now. A new coach in Tom Allen. They haven't played since December. They've been practicing all spring against themselves. And I know this game is against themselves, but it's still it's more of a game format. It's going to be played basically like a regular game. There's not going to be any kickoffs, but you're going to get punts, you're going to get PATs, you're going to get real plays, and it's just to kind of see where this team is at on both offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. They've lost some players on both sides. Just kind of see where this team's at going into the season.
Yeah, I agree with Josh. You know, it's time to find out who the leaders are on the field. They've had the winter to see who the leaders are in the workouts, in the weight room. You know, it's time to see those surprising players, and it's time for position battles. You know, look at Peyton Ramsey with this new type of offense that Coach DeBoer is bringing out. He could take that starting spot. You know, Coach DeBoer said he wants a fast-paced offense. He wants 10 to 12 plays in the matter of 2 minutes. That's a quick offense, and Richard Lego doesn't really fit into that scheme. So it's going to be interesting to see that. It's interesting to see, like Josh said, new players filling in roles, players like Alex Rodriguez running the ball while Kamion Patrick's hurt. So there's a lot of a lot of advantages to a game like the spring game.
Yeah, so it seems like they're taking this game very seriously. But Josh, are there injury concerns? Are there any disadvantages to this spring game at all?
Well, I mean, definitely. Anytime you play football, it's a dangerous sport. There's going to be injuries.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. So it's really just getting out of this game is you want to get out clean with no injuries, but you also want to see them play hard because you don't want to go through the motions in this game. It's football because if you do go through the motions, that could be even more dangerous, but that's a different story. But I mean, just getting something out of this game is very important. You want to see where this team is at going into the season. They haven't played in a while, so get on the field, let it all out.
Right, you know, you don't want to have any injuries. You don't want, like, for instance, Camion Patrick. He's supposed to be one of the best athletes that's come out of Indiana in a very long time. He's hurt right now. He's not going to play in this game. I think they want to just, get the kinks out and really work the system and kind of, play some real live in-game scenarios with referees and have a real fun game for the fans as well.
Yeah, and something new, I noticed the team puts on a draft and the players are chosen for both teams. Sidney Cobbs, wide receiver for the Hoosiers, was the first overall pick, and Tigray Scales, the linebacker, was the second overall pick. Surprised at all, and what are the thoughts with the draft for the spring game?
Yeah, not too surprised with Cobbs and Scales. I think those are kind of the top players on each side of the ball. But with this draft, it's really cool because Tom Allen, he was the defensive coordinator at South Florida, and under Willie Taggart, who now coaches at Oregon, they kind of did this draft. And now you get to see that kind of play out at IU. You had coaches going into classes. There's a bunch of noise about it on Twitter. The players are really getting into it. I think the fans are getting into it. It's really fun, I think, just for team camaraderie, and we'll see how it plays out on Thursday.
Definitely, I have to agree with him again. This is fun, new aspects of football that Coach Allen is bringing. He brought that one word that each player has for 2017 for their season. He's now bringing in this draft. They're signing free agents before the draft. This is all fun and games. This is all fun. And I think a great characteristic that Coach Allen has is that he can work hard and play even harder. So he really knows the difference and the fine line between fun and games and fun and seriousness. And he does a great job of making that fine line and letting these players really, have a great chemistry together and feel like a family.
All right, so there's 4 weeks of school left, and then there's going to be summertime for IU students. The football team is still going to be practicing, but I feel like football is going to be here before we know it. We're playing Ohio State in the first game this season, the Indiana Hoosiers, that is. Ohio State Buckeyes has been a top program the past 5 years, ranked usually in the top 5 by the AP poll. Big Ten, the first game of the season, Indiana, Ohio State. Do you guys like that? I don't like that move at all, personally, but what do you guys think about Indiana, Ohio State first game matchup?
It's a bit interesting that they throw a conference game in there because the game against Ohio State is one that, Indiana especially, they're going to be circling that on their schedule. This is a game that they want to go in and be competitive in because, Ohio State's going to be a top 5 team. Playing them in the first game of the season is interesting because you look at it, you have all this time to prepare for them, but at the same time, you don't really want to start off 0-1 in the conference on day one, going into the non-conference, and you got 3 weeks, you're sitting on that record. So there's pros and cons to it both. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of it.
But then let me hear a prediction too. Do you think Indiana football can come away with a W against the Buckeyes?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Too early?
I think it's a little too early. I want to see how they play in the spring game. Some of the position battles, like you were saying, Joe, see how those play out. But I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana pulled the upset. They almost did a few years ago. They're going to be charged up for this game. You never know.
So, Joe, let me just ask you before we wrap it up. Just give me a prediction here of IU's first game of the season, how it's going to propel them into the rest of the season.
I happen to actually disagree with Josh. I love the boldness of AD Fred Glass, deciding to put Ohio State right on the map. Who knows what could happen? Last time we played them at home, we had a lead going into the fourth quarter. Then, unfortunately, a guy named Ezekiel Elliott came in and really took over. But you never know what could happen. I don't necessarily think we get the W, but I think it's a smart, bold way of starting the season off for us.
Yeah, and it could be a start, a stepping stone in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Indiana football has made it to consecutive bowl games, but have not been able to come away with a W. New head coach Tom Allen's mantra for the season is breakthrough, and this breakthrough could finally be winning a bowl game the first time since the 1991 Copper Bowl. August 31st marks the beginning of Indiana's season. It takes 6 wins to secure a bowl spot. That's all we have today on Cream v. Crimson. Thank you for stopping by on our show, Josh. For Joe DiBenedetto, we'll see you next week. I'm Jordan Burrows. Be ready for another edition of Cream v. Crimson.
Coming up on Our Indiana, we look at the most recent development from the Little 500 Spring Series.
We'll also share our tweet of the week. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Sage Steele of ESPN. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Indiana University.
Welcome back to Our Indiana.
The Little 500 is an iconic race that many teams spend months preparing for. Qualifications have come and gone, but there are still a few other important events leading up to race day.
Our Indiana's own Austin Ghirardelli caught up with the people at the Team Pursuit this weekend and will now catch you up on how the Little 5 Spring Series is going.
The Spring Cycling Series is a set of events that take place before the Little 500. Many bikers use these races to prep for what's ahead. The third and final race in the series is called Team Pursuit.
With only 2 weeks left until the big race, qualified teams are here today inside Armstrong Stadium for Team Pursuit.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah, so men ride 15 laps and women are 12, and the point of the event is to have the fastest time at the end of the night. Everyone gets to run through once, and they start on the goal line of the soccer field, and they run to their bikes and do those laps, and at the end of it, the fastest few times will come back at the end of the night to compete for the championship.
These competitions allow bikers another opportunity to train, but the Spring Series also factors into what teams wear on race day.
So the jerseys are selected the Monday after qualifications in order that the teams qualified. So the teams that took the poll will be wearing the green jerseys, so that's Delta Gamma and then Sigma Alpha Epsilon. And then the winner of Spring Series will wear a white jersey, and the team that won in the previous year would typically wear yellow, but we won't have any yellow jerseys this year.
So you want the lowest points for your entire team over the course of Spring Series, and so this is kind of the last hurrah.
The two fastest times throughout Team Pursuit come back at the end of the night for the championship race. On the women's side, it was Delta Gamma who narrowly defeated Theta. The Black Key Bulls defeated CSF in the men's final, earning them the honor of wearing the exclusive white jersey on race day. For Our Indiana, I'm Austin Ghirardelli.
Now let's send it over to Brad Davis to see what he found interesting on Twitter in this week's Tweet of the Week.
Thanks, Nicole. Now that Tom Crean is gone, many wonder what he'll do with his time. This week's Tweet of the Week may be some semi-legitimate evidence of his plans. But before we get to the evidence, let me give some context, beginning in Ireland. Here's an article in last week's Irish Times. Maybe not what I expected, but who am I to judge a man doing some international advertising of himself? As you may know, the man on the tail fin doesn't really look like Tom Crean. Well, that's because they meant Tom Crean as in Irish Antarctic explorer Tom Crean. But do not be dismayed. Thanks to @VTBen, we can see what the planes may have looked like had it actually been that Tom Crean. And for this, I reward him Tweet of the Week. That's it for me. Back to you guys at the desk.
Stay tuned for After the Break. We'll look ahead to the sports being played for this upcoming week.
Find out what events you need to be at up next on Our Indiana.
Some breaks.
I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Indiana University.
Welcome back to Our Indiana.
Before we sign off, let's fast forward and take a look at the week ahead for IU athletics. Tyler Sorg joins us now with more.
Thanks, guys. We have a jam-packed week in the world of Hoosier sports, so let's get to it. The Hoosier softball team looked to snap their 5-game losing streak this Tuesday when they return home to Andy Moore Field to face the Purdue Boilermakers. The teams will play a doubleheader with the first game at 4 and the second at 6. You can catch both games on Big Ten Network. Later this week, the Hoosiers will head to Ohio State for a 3-game series against the Buckeyes. Friday's game is at 6, Saturday's is at 2, and Sunday's is at 1. The Indiana men and women's golf teams look to continue their strong play coming off solid performances at their recent home invitationals. The men's team is heading to West Lafayette this weekend for the Boilermaker Invitational. The women will play at Ohio State this weekend in the Lady Buckeye Invitational. The IU men's tennis team returns home this weekend to try and rebound from a pair of recent losses. The team will battle the Nebraska Cornhuskers Friday at 6 and the Iowa Hawkeyes at noon on Sunday. The Hoosier women's tennis team will head north to continue Big Ten play this weekend. Friday, the Hoosiers face the Wisconsin Badgers at 3 and take on the Minnesota Golden Gophers at 11 a.m. Sunday. The Hoosier track team will head to Louisville this weekend to continue their outdoor season. The team will compete in the Big Ten ACC Challenge, which will take place all day Saturday. Coming off a big win Sunday against George Washington, the water polo team is set to head east for a weekend trip to Providence, Rhode Island. Friday, the Hoosiers face Brown at 3:30 and St. Francis at 8:30. On Saturday, the team takes on Harvard at 9 a.m. and Hartwick at 3 p.m. The women's soccer team will play an exhibition match against the Illinois State Redbirds this Saturday. The match will take place at Bill Armstrong Stadium and is set to begin at 2 p.m. And of course, you can find all of the results from this week on IUHoosiers.com. That's all I have for this week. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Tyler. That's all we have for you this week.
Thanks for joining us tonight, and be sure to tune in next week for more IU Athletics coverage right here on Our Indiana.